Captain Jake Morrison had endured 3 months of ridicule aboard the Galactic Harmony, and today was no different. As he walked through the ship's central corridor with Whiskers perched on his shoulder, the familiar chorus of alien laughter echoed from the mess hall. "Look, the human brought his mighty predator again," chittered SCIFI, a mantis-like Thrakari whose 4 arms gestured mockingly. The other aliens at the table, a hulking Gordanian, 2 serpentine Sytheks, and a crystalline Vorthan, all joined in the laughter. Jake's jaw tightened, but he kept walking. Whiskers, a small tabby cat weighing barely 4 pounds, remained unfazed by the mockery. Her green eyes surveyed the aliens with the same casual indifference she'd shown to everything since leaving Earth. "I still don't understand," rumbled Thas, the Gordanian security chief, his voice like grinding stone. "Why would you bring such a useless creature on a deep space expedition? It serves no purpose." Jake stopped, turning to face the group. "She's not useless. Cats have been companions to humans for thousands of years." This only triggered more laughter. The Sytheks hissed in amusement, their forked tongues flicking out. "Companion? That tiny thing couldn't defend itself against a space rat, let alone protect you." "On my world," SCIFI added, clicking his mandibles together, "we have hunting beasts that stand 3 meters tall with claws that can pierce starship hull plating. Your cat looks like it would make a decent snack for one of them." Jake's hands clenched into fists. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't we?" The Vorthans' crystalline form chimed as it spoke. "We've been monitoring your pet's behavior for months. It sleeps 18 hours a day, contributes nothing to ship operations, and exists solely to consume resources." "She's not a pet," Jake said firmly. "She's what? Your protector." Thas laughed, a sound like an avalanche. "Human, I've seen the predators on your world through your databases. Your big cats, your wolves, your bears. Those are true hunters. This," he gestured dismissively at Whiskers, "this is a joke." Whiskers yawned, stretched, and began grooming her paw with complete disinterest in the conversation. This only made the aliens laugh harder. "See," SCIFI clicked. "Even now, faced with potential threats, it does nothing but clean itself. How embarrassing for your species." Jake felt heat rising in his cheeks. He'd heard variations of this conversation dozens of times. To the aliens aboard the ship, Whiskers represented everything weak about humanity. Small, soft, seemingly defenseless. They couldn't understand why humans had bonded with such creatures instead of the apex predators of their world. "You know what?" Jake said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Maybe you're right. Maybe Whiskers isn't the biggest or strongest predator on Earth. But you're making the same mistake every species makes when they underestimate humans and our companions." "And what mistake is that?" the Vorthan chimed. "You think size equals effectiveness." This brought another round of laughter. Even some passing crew members stopped to listen, their various forms of alien amusement filling the corridor. "Tell us, human," Thas said, leaning forward until his massive frame loomed over Jake. "What could that tiny creature possibly do that would impress any of us? What great feat of strength or combat prowess are you suggesting it's capable of?" Jake looked down at Whiskers, who had finished grooming and was now studying the aliens with half-closed eyes. To them, she looked lazy and uninterested, but Jake knew better. He could see the subtle signs they missed, the way her ears tracked every sound, how her pupils dilated slightly when measuring distances, the barely perceptible tension in her muscles. "You want to know what she's capable of?" Jake asked quietly. "Enlighten us," SCIFI chittered. "Pray you never find out." The aliens erupted in laughter again, but Jake didn't stick around to hear it. He walked away, Whiskers still perched calmly on his shoulder, her tail swishing gently as they headed toward their quarters. Behind them, the mockery continued. They had no idea what was coming. 3 days after the latest round of ridicule, the ship's problems began. Jake was in Engineering Bay 7, running diagnostics on the atmospheric processors, when the first screams echoed through the ventilation system. Whiskers, who had been napping on a warm console, immediately sat up, her ears swiveling toward the sound. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, grabbing his comm unit. Bridge, this is Morrison. What's the situation? Captain Vexmar's voice crackled through, tense with barely controlled panic. We have a situation in Cargo Bay 5. Report to the bridge immediately. On my way. Jake scooped up Whiskers and headed for the lift. As they traveled upward, he could hear more screams, followed by the ship's emergency klaxon. The bridge was chaos when he arrived. Aliens ran between stations, their various forms of agitation on full display. Zexdai's antennae twitched rapidly. The Sytheks coiled and uncoiled nervously, and even Thas looked concerned. What's going on? Jake demanded. Captain Vexmar, a tall, gray-skinned humanoid with 6 arms, gestured toward the main view screen. Show him the Cargo Bay footage. The screen flickered to life, displaying Cargo Bay 5 in infrared. At first, Jake couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. Then his blood ran cold. The bay was full of creatures, dozens of them. They moved like liquid shadow, roughly the size of large dogs but with elongated bodies and 6 legs ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were narrow and serpentine, with jaws that could unhinge to reveal multiple rows of fangs. Most disturbing of all were the venomous sacs visible along their necks, pulsing with a sickly green fluid. Vorthak Fangbeasts, Captain Vexmar said grimly. One of the deadliest predators in known space. Their venom can kill most species in minutes, and they hunt in packs. They must have gotten aboard when we docked at Kepler Station. How many? Jake asked, watching the creatures prowl through the cargo bay. At least 40, maybe more. They're still emerging from the cargo containers. On screen, Jake watched as one of the creatures approached a sealed door. It reared up on its hind legs and struck the metal with its claws, leaving deep gouges. Another joined it, then another. Within moments, they were tearing through the reinforced door like it was paper. They're breaking containment, Thas observed unnecessarily. Can we vent the bay? Jake asked. Negative, Vexmar replied. They've damaged the atmospheric controls. We're sealed in with them. As if summoned by his words, the lights in the corridor outside the cargo bay began flickering. Through the security cameras, they could see the Fangbeasts pouring out, spreading through the ship's lower levels like a plague. Sir, reported one of the Sythek communications officers. We're receiving distress calls from multiple decks. The creatures are moving fast. How fast? Vexmar demanded. They've reached Deck 7. Crew members are barricading themselves in their quarters. Jake felt Whiskers shift on his shoulder. She was fully alert now, her green eyes fixed on the view screen. Her tail had gone rigid, and he could feel her muscles tensing. What's our defensive capability? He asked. Thas stepped forward. I have security teams on every deck, but these creatures. Their venom is lethal even to Gordanians. One scratch and you're dead in minutes. My people are armed, but in close quarters. They're too fast, Zexdai finished. Fangbeasts can move at 60 kilometers per hour in short bursts. In the ship's corridors, they have every advantage. The view screen switched to a corridor camera just in time to show 3 Fangbeasts cornering a maintenance worker. The alien, one of the insectoid Clixery, tried to run, but the creatures were too fast. Jake looked away as the inevitable happened. We need to abandon ship, someone said. Negative, Vexmar replied firmly. We're 3 days out from the nearest station. The escape pods don't have enough range. Then what do you suggest? Thas demanded. These creatures will kill every living thing on this ship within hours. Jake studied the view screen, watching the Fangbeasts move through the corridors with predatory grace. They were magnificent killers, perfectly evolved for hunting in enclosed spaces. Fast, venomous, and utterly ruthless. He felt Whiskers shift again. She had begun to purr, a low rumble he could feel through her body. It wasn't the purr of contentment he usually heard when she was relaxed. This was different, deeper, more primal. It was the purr of a predator scenting prey. How long before they reach the upper decks? Jake asked quietly. At their current rate of movement? Maybe 2 hours, the Sythek officer replied. Jake nodded slowly. I need to get back to my quarters. Are you insane? Zextai chittered. The corridors are full of those things. I know. Jake was already heading for the lift. That's exactly why I need to go. As the lift doors closed, he could hear the aliens arguing behind him. They thought he was running away, retreating to his quarters to hide until the inevitable end. They were wrong. Jake wasn't running away. He was going to war. Jake's quarters were on Deck 12, deep in the ship's residential section. As the lift descended, he could hear the sounds of chaos echoing through the ventilation system. Screams, gunfire, and underneath it all, the skittering sound of claws on metal. Whiskers remained perched on his shoulder, but her entire demeanor had changed. The lazy, indifferent cat the aliens had mocked was gone. In her place was something ancient and deadly, a descendant of millions of years of evolution that had produced the perfect killing machine. The lift stopped at Deck 10. Through the doors, Jake could hear movement in the corridor, the soft padding of feet and the whisper of breathing that wasn't quite mammalian. Motion detected, the lift's AI announced. Recommend alternative route. Override, Jake said quietly. Open doors. Warning. Hostile life forms detected in corridor. I know. Open the doors. The doors slid apart with a soft hiss. The corridor was dimly lit, emergency lighting casting long shadows. Jake stepped out carefully, Whiskers still on his shoulder. He didn't have to wait long. The Fangbeast emerged from the shadows like liquid death, its 6 legs carrying it forward in complete silence. It was even more terrifying up close, nearly 2 meters long, with muscles rippling beneath its dark hide. The venomous sacs along its neck pulsed rhythmically, and its jaws hung partially open, revealing rows of needle-sharp fangs. It saw Jake and froze, its head tilting as it studied this new prey. Its eyes were like black glass, reflecting the emergency lights. Jake didn't move. He barely breathed. The Fangbeast took a step forward, then another. His claws clicked softly against the deck plating. It was in no hurry. It had cornered its prey and could afford to take its time. That was its first mistake. Whiskers dropped from Jake's shoulder like a stone. She hit the deck in complete silence, her 4 pounds of muscle and bone flowing across the metal like mercury. The Fangbeast's head snapped toward her, but it was already too late. She was inside its reach in less than a second. While the alien creature was still processing what had happened, Whiskers launched herself upward, her claws extended. She hit the Fangbeast at the base of its skull with surgical precision. The creature reared back, trying to shake her off, but Whiskers had already found what she was looking for. Her teeth sank deep into the soft tissue where the creature's skull met its spine, the same killing bite that had made her ancestors the terror of small prey for millennia. The Fangbeast thrashed wildly, its claws scarring the corridor walls as it tried to dislodge the tiny predator. But Whiskers held on with the determination of a creature that had never known defeat. Her jaws clamped down harder, finding the nerve cluster that controlled the creature's movement. The Fangbeast's struggles grew weaker. Its legs buckled. Within 30 seconds, it collapsed to the deck, its nervous system severed. Whiskers released her grip and stepped back, licking her lips with satisfaction. She looked up at Jake as if to say, "What took you so long?" Jake stared at the dead creature in amazement. The aliens thought cats were useless because they were small. They couldn't comprehend that evolution had spent millions of years perfecting the killing machines that humans had chosen to live with. "Good girl," he whispered. Whiskers meowed softly and began grooming herself, as if killing a creature 10 times her size was just another part of her day. Jake's comm unit crackled. "Morrison, this is the bridge. What's your status?" "I'm fine," Jake replied. "1 Fangbeast down." There was silence. Then, "Say again." "I said 1 Fangbeast down." Whiskers killed it. More silence. Then Zextai's voice, filled with disbelief. "That's impossible. Those creatures are apex predators." "So is she," Jake said simply. He looked down at Whiskers, who had finished grooming and was now staring down the corridor with intense focus. Her ears were forward, her pupils dilated. She had caught another scent. "How many more are on this deck?" Jake asked into his comm. "Scanners show at least 6, came the reply. Jake smiled grimly. Not for long. Whiskers was already moving, flowing down the corridor like a shadow with claws. Jake followed, watching in amazement as she disappeared into a ventilation grate that would have been too small for any of the ship's other predators. The hunt had begun. Over the next 2 hours, the tide of battle turned in ways the alien crew could never have predicted. Jake moved through the ship's corridors like a ghost, Whiskers appearing and disappearing through ventilation shafts, maintenance tunnels, and access panels that the larger Fangbeasts couldn't reach. She used the ship's architecture against them, turning their size advantage into a liability. The first kill had been almost too easy. The second Fangbeast had been stalking a group of Thrakari engineers who had barricaded themselves in a storage room. It was so focused on trying to claw through the door that it never noticed the small predator dropping from the ceiling vent directly above it. Whiskers landed on its back and immediately went for the nerve cluster at the base of its skull. The creature bucked and thrashed, but it couldn't reach her with its claws or fangs. Within moments, it was down. The third kill was more challenging. The Fangbeast had been prowling the ship's medical bay, where several wounded crew members were trapped. It was alert, constantly scanning its surroundings. But it was scanning for threats at its own eye level. Whiskers used the medical equipment as cover, moving beneath surgical tables and diagnostic machines until she was directly below the creature. When she struck, it was from an angle the Fangbeast had never encountered, straight up through the soft tissue of its throat. By the fourth kill, word was spreading through the ship. The impossible was happening. The tiny Earth predator was hunting the apex predators of known space, and winning. Jake found himself in the ship's central armory, where Thas and his security team had made their last stand. The Gordanian was down to his final power cell, his massive frame showing multiple wounds from near misses with Fangbeast claws. "Human!" Thas bellowed as Jake appeared in the doorway. "Get out of here! There are 3 of them in the corridor." Jake looked down at Whiskers, who was studying the tactical situation with professional interest. Her nose twitched as she caught the scent of the creatures lurking just around the corner. "I know," Jake said calmly. "Then why are you here?" "Because they're between us and the next group of survivors." Jake gestured toward his comm unit, which was crackling with distress calls from the lower decks. "And because Whiskers is getting hungry." As if summoned by his words, the first Fangbeast rounded the corner. It saw the armed security team and hissed, its venomous sacs swelling as it prepared to attack. It never saw Whiskers drop from the ceiling behind it. The small cat landed silently and immediately went to work. But this time, instead of going for the neck, she targeted the creature's legs. Her claws raked across the tendons in its rear legs, severing them with surgical precision. The Fangbeast collapsed, unable to support its own weight. Before it could react, Whiskers was at its throat. The second Fangbeast appeared, saw its pack mate falling, and charged. But it made the mistake of focusing on the obvious threat, Thas and his security team, rather than the small predator now moving like liquid lightning across the deck. Whiskers intercepted it mid-charge, leaping onto its side and immediately going for its eyes. The creature thrashed wildly, but she held on, her claws finding the soft tissue around its optical organs. Blinded and disoriented, it stumbled into the wall, giving her the opening she needed to reach its neck. The third Fangbeast was smarter. It had seen what happened to its pack mates and was backing away, hissing warnings. Its head moved constantly, trying to track the small predator that had become the apex threat in its world. But Whiskers had already disappeared. The creature spun in circles, searching for its tormentor. It checked the ceiling, the walls, even the floor, but it couldn't find her. That was because she was inside the ventilation system directly above it, moving through ducts barely larger than her own body. She had learned the ship's layout over months of exploration, mapping every tunnel and access point that the larger creatures couldn't reach. When she struck, it was through a ventilation grate directly over the Fangbeast's head. She dropped like a guided missile, her claws extended, her teeth bared in a silent snarl. The creature never had a chance. Thas and his security team stared in amazement as Whiskers calmly walked away from the 3 dead Fangbeasts, her tail held high with satisfaction. Impossible, one of the Sytheks whispered. No, Jake said, scratching Whiskers behind the ears as she jumped back onto his shoulder. Just Earth evolution at work. His comm unit crackled. Morrison, this is the bridge. We're reading multiple Fangbeast life signs going dark across the ship. What's your situation? 7 down, Jake reported. How many left? Scanners show. By the void, how is this possible? Scanners show only 15 remaining life signs, and they're all clustered in the cargo bay. Jake smiled. They're scared. Scared? Of what? Of her. Through the ship's internal sensors, they could all hear it now, the sound that had been building for the past 2 hours. It was soft at first, barely audible above the ship's ambient noise. But it was growing stronger. It was the sound of Fangbeasts fleeing. The apex predators of known space were running from a 4-pound housecat. The final confrontation took place in Cargo Bay 5, where it had all begun. By the time Jake and Whiskers arrived, the remaining Fangbeasts had barricaded themselves behind overturned cargo containers, hissing and snarling at every shadow. Captain Vexmar and the senior staff had gathered in the observation deck above the cargo bay, watching through reinforced windows as the impossible drama unfolded below. This is madness, Zextai chittered, his mandibles clicking nervously. Those creatures are the apex predators of 3 different star systems. How is this possible? Jake looked up at the observation window where the aliens were pressed against the glass like children watching a zoo exhibit. A few hours ago, they had been mocking Whiskers. Now they watched her every movement with a mixture of fascination and terror. You want to know how this is possible? Jake called up to them. It's because you made the same mistake every species makes when they first encounter Earth predators. You assumed bigger meant better. Whiskers had already begun her final hunt. She moved through the cargo bay like a force of nature, using the scattered containers and equipment as cover. The Fangbeasts tried to track her, but she was too small, too fast, and too smart. Your Fangbeasts are apex predators in open environments, Jake continued, his voice echoing in the cavernous bay. Wide spaces, multiple escape routes, room to maneuver. But this isn't their environment. This is a ship. Confined spaces. Limited exits. One of the Fangbeasts spotted movement and charged, its claws sparking against the deck plating. It rounded a container at full speed, expecting to corner its tiny tormentor. Instead, it found empty space. Whiskers had already moved, flowing through a gap between containers that was barely wide enough for her small frame. This is Whiskers' environment, Jake said. Humans didn't domesticate cats. We partnered with them. For 10,000 years, they've been keeping our ships and buildings free of pests. They've evolved to be the perfect predators for confined spaces. The Fangbeast spun around, searching frantically. That was when Whiskers struck, dropping from the top of a container onto its back. Her claws found the nerve cluster with deadly precision. Every ship that leaves Earth carries cats, Jake continued as another Fangbeast fell. Not as pets, as partners, as the deadliest small space predators in the galaxy. The remaining Fangbeasts were in full panic now. They had huddled together behind the largest container, their pack instincts overriding their intelligence. But pack tactics that worked against large prey were useless against a solitary hunter who could appear from any direction. Whiskers took them one by one, using their fear against them. Each kill made the survivors more desperate, more prone to mistakes. They tried to flee through ventilation shafts, only to discover that she could move through them faster than they could. They tried to climb the walls, but she was a better climber. They tried to hide, but she could track them by scent. Within 20 minutes, it was over. Whiskers sat in the center of the cargo bay, surrounded by the bodies of creatures that had terrorized 3 star systems. She began grooming herself with the casual indifference that had so amused the aliens just hours before. The observation deck was silent. Jake scooped up Whiskers and walked toward the exit. As he passed beneath the observation window, he looked up at the assembled alien crew. "Still think she's useless?" he asked. No one answered. Later, As the ship resumed course toward their destination, Jake found himself back in the mess hall. But this time, the atmosphere was very different. The aliens sat in small groups, speaking in hushed tones and casting respectful glances toward the small cat sleeping peacefully on Jake's shoulder. Thas approached their table, his massive frame moving with uncharacteristic caution. "Human," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about your companion. Her name is Whiskers," Jake said quietly. "Whiskers," Thas repeated, the name sounding strange in his gravelly voice. "May I ask, how many of her kind are on Earth?" "Hundreds of millions," Jake replied. "Maybe close to 1 billion. Thas's eyes widened. "And they all hunt like this?" "Every single one. From the biggest tiger to the smallest kitten. They're all apex predators, Thas. We just fed them so well that they didn't need to hunt us anymore." The Gordanian sat down heavily, his chair creaking under his weight. "No wonder your species conquered your planet," he muttered. Zextai approached next, his 4 arms folded in a gesture of respect. "I have studied the databases of many worlds," he said. "I have never encountered predators like this, so small yet so deadly. How is it possible?" Jake looked down at Whiskers, who had woken up and was studying the mantis-like alien with mild interest. "Millions of years of evolution," he said. "Perfect reflexes, night vision, hearing that can detect ultrasonic frequencies, claws that can extend and retract, teeth designed for precise killing bites, and the intelligence to outthink their prey. And they live with humans voluntarily?" One of the Sytheks asked from across the room. "They chose us," Jake confirmed. "Just like we chose them. It's been the most successful partnership in galactic history." Captain Vexmar entered the mess hall. His 6 arms moving in what Jake had learned was a gesture of deep respect. "Morrison," he said formally, "I wanted to personally thank you and Whiskers for saving this ship. You have my eternal gratitude." Jake nodded. "Just doing our job, Captain." "If I may ask," Vexmar continued, "what did you mean when you said that every Earth ship carries cats?" Jake smiled. "Exactly what I said. We learned long ago that the best defense against pests, predators, and hostile boarding parties isn't weapons or shields. It's cats. Small enough to go anywhere, smart enough to solve any problem, and deadly enough to kill anything that threatens the ship." He gestured toward Whiskers, who had begun purring again, the same deep primal sound that had preceded her hunt. "Every merchant vessel, every exploration ship, every military cruiser that leaves Earth carries at least 2 cats. Usually more." "How many ships has Earth launched?" Zextai asked nervously. "In the past 50 years? About 10,000. The mess hall fell silent as the implications sank in. 10,000 ships, each carrying multiple cats. Each cat capable of killing apex predators 10 times their size. "And they're all heading toward the galactic core?" Thas asked quietly. "That's where the opportunities are," Jake confirmed. Whiskers yawned, stretched, and settled back onto Jake's shoulder. To the untrained eye, she looked like nothing more than a sleepy house cat. But every alien in the room now understood what they were really looking at. They were looking at Earth's secret weapon. They were looking at the reason humanity was spreading across the galaxy faster than any species in recorded history. They were looking at the future. And the future was very, very small. But it had very, very big teeth.